Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway trilogy fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video. And again, I always like to plug the Patreon, but the links in the description. You can request any sort of combat sporting related video, analysis of any kind of fights or predictions for any kind of fights. Again, this is me talking about MMA, UFC, any kind of MMA event or boxing event. Like I say, feel free to join the Patreon and you can request. And I appreciate all the support I've had on it so far already. But yeah, let's get straight into this one. So before we speak about the actual main event, we'll just touch quickly upon kind of the event as a whole. And this is UFC 318. It's not a stacked event at all, to be completely honest. And I feel like a lot of fans have come to realize this. We've got, Kevin Holland on it. We've got Costa versus Kopilov being the co-main. Pitbull versus Dan Ige was the co-main before, and that's just been moved a bit lower down on the card now. It's really not a stacked card for what the fans are expecting from a UFC pay-per-view. It's a lot of money, especially for the American fans, and to fork that out, it's just I don't particularly know if it's worth it, especially for this card. It's just, like I say, not the best of cards. People are kind of just seeing this as a Poirier celebration more than that of a pay-per-view, UFC main big card. This fight is a really good fight in Poirier versus Holloway, and the fans perhaps weren't particularly crying out for a trilogy just because of how dominant the realistically the first two was, and at this time in their careers perhaps other matchups could have been a bit more exciting for the fans and could have meant a bit more for the fans. But at the same time, I think it is going to make for an entertaining fight, and of course it's the BMF title, and they like to have the BMF title as the main event and the main focus whenever they use it and put it on. But again, like I say, it just doesn't make for the most stacked of cards. And when UFC Abu Dhabi next week is happening, and that's a fight night, and that's got such a stacked card with the likes of course, the main event being Whittaker Derrida, and then we've got some excellent other fights. Peter Yan's on the card as well. Evloev versus I forgot the guy's name. Evloev's on the card versus a new inductee into the UFC, and then Aaron Pico. Sorry, that's his name. And then like I say, there's some other really good fights on it as well. I mean, Bryce Mitchell's on the card as well, and like I say, it's a much more stacked out card seemingly, especially for a fight night where perhaps I've seen a lot of UFC kind of creators just talk about how this is a bit poorer of a card compared to that of UFC Abu Dhabi, where of course the money's getting pumped in, and that's when they're going to really invest and put in some real good names. But like I say, the main event is still good for this, and it's still exciting and entertaining. And I suppose to speak about this main event, of course, being for the BMF title, it will be interesting to see what happens with this, because if Poirier does win, I mean, he says that he's going to retire no matter what and that this is his last fight. He's going to be retiring with the BMF belt. Will that retire the belt? Probably not. I'd imagine that there will be a vacant BMF title fight at some point that will be arranged. With who? I'm not entirely sure if Poirier does win, but I'm sure the UFC will probably be wanting Max to win, because of course he's not going to be retiring after this most likely if he does win. So they want to of course keep the BMF title alive, but also at the same time they want the person who's not leaving the organization to win, to then him to progress on in his career. So again, like I say, that will be an interesting factor to see what happens. But of course, this is a trilogy fight. They both, of course, have fought before twice, and they fought in 2019 and in 2012. Dustin is currently 2-0 up, and they basically fought at all the different stages of their respective careers. I mean, Max's fight versus Dustin was his first one in the UFC. It was when Max was very young, I think, like he was the youngest UFC fighter in the UFC that was around at that time, and he kind of broke that record at that time. And again, it progressed on to 2019 when they were both in that title contention, kind of in the midpoints of their careers, and perhaps the highest of maybe not Max's career, but Dustin's career, when they fought for that interim belt in the lightweight division, when Khabib couldn't defend the belt, and of course Dustin won that. And then now they're at this point where they're both on the latter stages of their career, and they're both coming off a defeat against the highest level of guys. And now, this of course is Dustin's final fight. So like I say, they definitely have fought at the best, the each part of their careers, if that makes sense. And Poirier, of course, when he beat Max, he only ever became interim champion. He has lost 3 times in any time in which he has become, whenever he's been given that opportunity to become a world champion, he's gone out there and he's lost. But, the names in which he's faced in title level contention have always been the top names. I mean, Khabib, of course, Khabib is amazing, and Oliveira. This was an Oliveira who was on an amazing run as well. And then Islam just last time out. Of course, Islam pound for pound one of the best at the moment. And so, like I said, there's no discredit to any of the times in which he has lost when he's fought for the belt. And him saying that he's retiring before the fight is something that's very rare to see from UFC fighters. I mean, more often than not, they kind of just have the fight, see what happens, play it out, and then if they are wanting to retire, they'll lay the gloves in the middle of the ring, and it can come as not a bit of a surprise, but it maybe is a bit of a bigger moment because maybe the commentators aren't expecting it quite as much and things like that, and it makes for them to have the post-fight interview and things like that. But it will be intriguing to see, due to the fact that he has announced that he's going to be retiring before the fight, if he'll be willing to kind of mentally dig deep, if he's going to be wanting to go out there and really put out one really good last performance for the fans, or if he's going to perhaps fade away if times get tough and, the fight gets difficult and things like that. Because Max will probably be able to drag Dustin into a war and it could be an amazing fight. But it's just the mental fortitude of Poirier at this point in his career. Will he be willing to dig deep? And we'll have to wait and see. And I suppose if he goes out there and delivers an amazing first round knockout type of performance, then he retires. Is that just him retiring on an amazing high? Or will that maybe make him reconsider his retirement? So like I say, it is interesting to see, that he has said he's going to be retiring before he's even fought. And, it's all credit to him. He's been in the UFC since 2011. He's fought some great guys. He's got his family, and you can tell that is his priority at this point in his life. Now he's, like I say, been fighting for so long. I'm sure he's made heaps of money in the fights in which he's had. And, I mean, I've gone back and gone through some of the amazing fights in which he's been in, some highlight fights, and just some of the names in which he's been able to beat: Pettis, Gaethje, Alvarez, Hooker. That Hooker fight was amazing. McGregor twice, of course, they were iconic moments. Saint Denis, and like I said, that was a fight in which, yes, Saint Denis win wasn't an amazingly good win in the way that it's aged, because Saint Denis is still lowly ranked in the lightweight division, but that was him coming off a devastating stoppage defeat to Gaethje, and this was when we were thinking as fans that Poirier might be fading away a little bit and might not have much left in the tank to be able to really get that final title run. And then he was able to stop Saint Denis and looked really good in that performance. And so, like I say, he's had some amazing moments throughout his career. He's always fought the best, and he definitely deserves a big name for his retirement. I mean, he said that he will only take a big name in a retirement fight, and I suppose to an extent that might be the reason why he has waited so long for this fight. It's been over a year since we've last saw him, and again, like I say, it's just good to see that we've moved into 2025 and we're still having another Dustin Poirier fight, even though, like I say, it is the last one, 14 years in the UFC. He definitely has served the organisation very well. For Max Holloway, though, of course, he's moving back up into the lightweight division after being quite brutally knocked out by Ilia Topuria. Again, it will be interesting to see if I put out this kind of debate which way the fans would lead. Do fans think that Gaethje's knockout of Poirier was more devastating than Topuria's knockout of Holloway? Bit of a debate there, but still, he's moved up since then, and of course everybody remembers what happened in the last time he was in the lightweight division against Justin Gaethje, the iconic, arguably one of the best moments in perhaps all of combat sporting history, or at least in the UFC, arguably one of the best. And now he's coming back up into lightweights, like I say, after getting brutally knocked out. It is interesting to see because, I mean, Toporia's moved up. He's gone on and beaten Oliveira via first round stoppage, and it does kind of mean that Holloway, Poirier, they're just not really particular. Holloway's move up into the lightweight division isn't really filled with a tremendous amount of excitement because he's coming off the defeat against a champion now in the lightweight division. There's just not really going to be a push from him to really try and gun for a title shot, I'd imagine, because there isn't really a tremendous amount of matchups in which he hasn't already faced. And he's faced Poirier, he's lost. I'm sure the fans won't really be eager to push that for a rematch if he beats Poirier. So, again, he's fought Gaethje and he beat him. He beat him quite convincingly as well. Then he's fought Hooker. Again, like I said, there's not really a tremendous amount of matchups. Pimlet isn't really one that I feel like is going to go down the route. I feel like Pimlet's going to face Gaethje and then perhaps go on to then fight for a title. The likes of a Sarukian and an Oliveira coming off to defeat perhaps would excite the fans a little bit, but I just don't feel like there is a tremendous amount of hype for Holloway fights at the moment. And, saying he is a fan favourite, he's always going to be entertaining, but at the same time, like I say, how intrigued are the fans to see him fight these guys, these contenders in the lightweight division, when they kind of know in the back of their minds that he's not going to get a title shot unless he works really hard and gets on like a 5-fight win streak. So again, like I say, it's interesting to see, and maybe that might be in the back of Holloway's mind as well, and that might make him again think that he's kind of wary of trying to go in for really trying to dig deep and things like that. He might be a bit reluctant to do that at this point in his career. Of course, he's been in the UFC since 2012. He's had some great wins in his career. Just to list a few: Oliveira, Pettis, Aldo twice, Edgar, the Calvin Kattar win when he was boxing, and speaking to Dana and speaking to the commentary teams, calling himself the best boxer in the UFC. Everybody remembers that iconic moment, as well as, of course, the Gaethje moment. Rodriguez as well, Arnold Allen as well. Just some great names. And the fact he's still only 33 years of age, it will be really interesting to see with the amount of wars in which he's been in, and now he's actually finally been knocked out. He was hurt against Poirier in their second fight, and he wasn't able to get knocked out then, but he's finally been knocked out, and will his chin perhaps not be the same since? And like I say, we'll have to wait and see. But I feel like this will be a entertaining affair. The end of the fight will definitely be interesting. I mean, Holloway has said that he probably will want to stand toe to toe, or at least the fans are expecting that from him. But then Poirier has said that he's going to be trying to jump the gilly in the final few seconds if they do go toe to toe. So again, like I say, it will be intriguing to see what happens in the final few seconds of the fight if we do get to the end. Going all the rounds. I don't feel like I normally kind of I'm excited to see a fight go the full distance, but for this, to be honest, I actually am, and it is definitely a battle of, the experience in and overall as a fight. But to speak about them both individually as fighters, Poirier is definitely well-rounded. I would argue that he is the more well-rounded fighter than that of Holloway. He keeps his shape well. I think he does keep his shape a bit better than that of Holloway, and he does have quite a good boxing stance, and he's a solid boxer. He won't be bullied, and especially he won't be bullied up against the cage when he's wrestling or anything like that. So if he does back up, he, like I say, will still be able to have success, and he's not got bad takedown defense. Again, I don't think he's going to have to worry about that against Holloway, and I mean, I think he is a much better wrestler than that of Holloway, and he didn't really try and go for any kind of wrestling exchanges against Makhachev because you could see that he was a bit reluctant to do that. But again, I think he could have success if he goes for a takedown or two against Holloway. He leads off his jab well, and he's got a good straight 1-2. I think his jab can be one of his best weapons, and in general he can fight at a mid or an in close range. When he is fighting in close, he'll be going to the body very nicely. He lets his hands go, and like I say, his body shots with his hooks are very good, and he can fight in a clinch well. That will be interesting to see who has the better of success in close, when Holloway likes to be able to go with his knees, his flying knees, and can also catch you with a spinning kick when when you are coming in, but Poirier likes to dig deep with the body shots, and so again, like I say, it will be interesting to see who has the best of the in-close exchanges. He always aims to respond whenever he gets caught, which again will add to the excitement of it, and of course he has a tremendous amount of heart, Poirier. He's composed throughout a lot of the time. Even if he's losing, he can be composed and can come back, and he does catch shots well typically. I mean, even when he did get knocked out by Gaethje, he still kind of half caught the shot, so credit to him, but still that power from that kick was just too much from Gaethje. Negatives about him, I think his hand speed in the past was really good, but I think it is dropping and slowing down a little bit. I could see that Makhachev was being able to beat him to the punch and to just be faster and to fight at a tempo which he didn't seem to like, and he didn't seem to be able to start as fast as what perhaps he was able to do in the past. And like I say, I feel like he is slowing down a bit. He again perhaps isn't remaining as disciplined as what he should be. Like say, when he was continually jumping the gilly and his team were literally getting to a point where they're just saying, don't do that, you can't be doing that. Again, I just don't feel like it should get to that point. He doesn't react, with counters, trying to throw counters. He'll try and always respond, but he does get caught and then, has to wait for his moment and then he will try and respond. He drops his hands. His physical strength is not able to compete with the elite anymore. And again, Makhachev really proved that. But at the same time, Holloway kind of got showed that when he faced up against Poirier, because Poirier was just able to pick him up and just drop him straight down. But again, that could be the weight with Holloway. He doesn't really. He used to be good with throwing the kicks and trying to beat down the leg. He did that really well against McGregor, but he just hasn't realistically been doing that, and he doesn't really throw a tremendous amount of knees either, or the variety in attacks and using all the different limbs and things like that. It is a bit limited, and his agility is a lot more limited than that of Holloway. He's of course been hurt, and I think he does tire, perhaps a bit more so than that of Holloway. Speak more about Holloway as a fighter. He's very agile, like I've talked about. He's got fast hands and fast feet, and I feel like that does kind of move up and carry going into, the lightweight division as well. He's accurate, and I think he's got good, solid head movement with a good chin as well. I think that good chin is still there, even though he has, of course, been knocked out, and so I could be proved wrong, but I do believe that good chin is still there. He's accurate with his straight shots, and he's got that underrated power. I feel like it's that power that can really beat you down and can cause significant amount of damage just with the output in which he's throwing and the output in which he's landing. He's willing to let his hands go with a variety of strikes, and in general he can flip momentum with a single shot, even if he is on the back foot, by just like say pushing you backwards. He's got really good push kicks as well, putting combinations together. His stamina, I believe, is good, and even when he's been grounded and been, even if Poirier is able to get him to the ground, I feel like he is very good at getting his back to the cage to then be able to work back to his feet, even when he is grounded. And again, he was able to do that against Poirier, even when Poirier kind of manhandled him to the ground. And I think his general balance is very good. That's why he can throw these agile kicks. Negatives about him, I think, he has been beaten up with kicks, and that was basically what happened a lot of the time when he was fighting Volkanovski. He was continually landing kicks on him that was really damaging him and slowing down his movement. He does go back in straight lines, and again, that's when he can get caught with quite significant shots, and he can come in with quite wide hooks. Again, like I say, I feel like a lot of his straight kind of work is better. He can load up on the back foot a bit and can, give you that opportunity, which is of course what he's doing when he's pointing down to the ground later on in the fight. But, it's definitely entertaining for the fans, and that earns him the BMF title, but he wasn't reckless. He didn't try and stand toe-to-toe with Poirier straight away, and he did have bits of success against Poirier. His wrestling game, like I say, isn't a tremendously great, especially offensive wrestling. He doesn't really try and do that very much, and he's never really much of a submission threat, and he can have quite a weak and open guard. If you can pin him up against the cage, I think that's when he might struggle a little bit and, question himself a bit. And, instead of trying to throw if he's hurt or cover up when he's hurt, he can just kind of grab onto your hands a bit, which is not really something that I'd recommend, because, you're really not defending yourself and your face if you're actually just trying to grab onto the hands instead of trying to cover up, or, he will run away a bit, but if you can close off the ring and things like that, you can get hurt, and that's what happens with Holloway sometimes. I think his physicality, like I say, isn't tremendous, and he does need that space to be able to work for the most part. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Max Holloway is going to be able to do it and is going to be able to win via unanimous decision. I don't believe that he's going to be able to stop Poirier. I think it is going to be a bit of a war that hopefully will end in an entertaining fashion. But I think just seeing what I saw from that last performance with Poirier and Makhachev, of course, taking into consideration that he's had also a year out, Dustin Poirier, he did look a lot slower. And I think in his recent performances, he's been getting more tired and slower in his performances. And I think Max Holloway has showcased that the speed can maintain and still can be there. So as long as his chin isn't completely gone, which, Poirier has also been knocked out in a bad way as well. So, I'd argue that they both have had the same kind of level of damage throughout their careers. I just feel like Max Holloway is going to be able to do it. Like I say, landing the more creative shots, being able to perhaps cause a bit more damage, nullifying Poirier's jab by Holloway having a longer jab, and nullifying in close as well, because Holloway will probably be able to land a knee that will do more damage than Poirier's inside boxing work. So again, like I say, I think Holloway is going to be able to win via unanimous decision. Then who we can go on to fight next? Again, possibly Dan Hooker. That would definitely be an entertaining fight, and maybe that's probably the one that fans would want to see the most from Holloway. Sarukian maybe, Oliveira maybe, but again, like I say, I just don't know if these matchups are really going to excite the fans. Perhaps this could be Max Holloway's final fight as well. Maybe he might go on to retire because of the amount of fights in which he's been in, but of course we will have to wait and see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.